Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories. So we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm excited to have Dave Hubbard on the show. Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, I grew up in Napa, California, on a ranch. Actually, I lived in Napa before grapes were actually the main agricultural crop. Believe it or not, it was plums and walnuts, and that's what we picked for our summer jobs. 5 brothers, 5 kids. Was a 3-sport athlete. All of us were super active. None of us we knew the money wasn't there for us to pay, my parents to pay for college. So we all scrambled in our own way, and all of us ended up with full rides, either academic or music or sports. For me, it was sports. Had a full ride to several colleges, chose BYU, Brigham Young University. So I went there in the early 70s, and not Mormon, but that's where I went to school. It was really 2 different worlds in terms of that aspect of things at the school. But that was the beginning when BYU was really taking off. Lavelle Edwards' second year, I think, there. And so it was good. They were good years. From there, had the opportunity to play professionally. I was drafted by the New Orleans Saints, played for Hank Stram, and was a left offensive tackle protecting Archie Manning there at with New Orleans. Shortly after football ended, and I actually stepped out of football into the ministry. That was something that I had always planned on doing, and it was at that time that I decided to do something I always wanted to do, and that was to go parachuting just for the fun of it. We called it parachuting because it wasn't skydiving then. You didn't, today, if you're going to do that, it's a tandem jump. You're hooked up to a professional and you jump out at about 14,000 feet and so on. Back then, you went to kind of small, little bit sketchy areas where they'd let you jump out of an airplane, and they were static line jumps. They were military type jumps where, as you jumped out of the plane, the chute opened, and so you only jumped out at about 3,000 feet. So some buddies of mine went up there and to jump, and what happened was, long story short, is my main chute did not open. And when I finally got the reserve open, so I'm falling from the time I left the plane to the time I hit the ground was less than 30 seconds. I'm flying at 125 miles an hour. Have no concept of kind of where I'm at, because there's really no sensation of falling in parachuting. They tell you that, but you just don't believe it until it's actually happening. And I finally got the reserve open, and when it opened, I hit the ground. It was just, I was only 200 feet off the ground when I hit.
Wow.
Thought I broke every bone in my body, but it began to center the pain and everything on my back, and realized I seriously injured my back. So I say all that because that's pivotal to what kind of how my life changed, and something else that I ended up doing besides ministry, which I've always continued to do. For the first time in my life, I got out of shape physically. I'd always been in shape. I didn't even know what that felt like. But I was to the point where, my playing weight in the NFL was 280 pounds. So I just kind of let that go, and I high blood pressure, high body fat, you name it. I was motivated to get my act together by a title of an article I read that said the average lifespan of an ex-NFL athlete is only 53 years of age.
Wow.
And it's actually not far from that now, believe it or not. I think it's still under 60. And so I said, I'm going to be a part of that statistic unless I get my act together. My problem was that everything I knew to do, I couldn't do, in terms of exercise because of my back. The big thing then was that now we're into the 80s, and 90s was jogging and aerobics, and I couldn't do it because of my back. Even lifting like weights for strength, because it put so much compression on my spine and my back, I couldn't do it. So I ended up developing a method by which you could build strength in a short period of time without putting any compression on the spine, and have a patent on that. And it was so revolutionary from the standpoint of what happened over the course of just about 2.5 years. My hypothesis was that everybody was spending way too much time actually doing what could take a lot less time as far as getting the results that they really wanted with exercise and fitness. And I felt like because that was the case and things were ramping up in terms of people's busy lives, and so it was like, okay, I need to exercise 45 minutes to an hour 2 to 3 times a week. But then what happens is soccer practice changes for the kids, I miss one session here, and you get to the end of the month, you've exercised half a dozen times. My concept was, let's do 10 minutes a day. Now, with that said, I, from the very beginning, drew a distinction between exercise and a workout. Okay, and I think this is a really important distinction. Exercise has to do with anything you do just to get moving. And in today's sedentary society, we're sitting 12 to 14 hours a day. We got to move. You got to move as much as you can. So,
Yep.
Walking is fantastic. Playing golf, playing tennis, any activity that you do is, I would consider, exercise. And exercise can be, and oftentimes is, fun. A workout, on the other hand, is not fun. In fact, it should not be fun. If you're having fun, you're really probably not doing it right. Because a workout is where you give your body the stress that it really demands. You stress the heart, stress the muscle, stress the bones, stress your brain, and great things happen. That's how we're wired. And so when I say 10 minutes a day, I mean a 10-minute workout. And the idea was kind of get in, get out, get it over with, but do it every day so that it develops as a habit. Habit forming became a big part of the methodology that I employed with people, because I believe that that's the key. My tagline was, it's far better to brush your teeth for 2 or 3 minutes a day than for 45 minutes 2 to 3 times a month. And so that was a big part of what we did, of what I did.
I love it. And I think that's one of the fundamental things. We looked at wellness, and one of the pieces we felt was missing was the habitual side of things, because if we don't make something a habit, as soon as the weather gets cool, or, as you said, kids' schedules change, everything goes out the window. Whereas a habit, we just do. And I think that's the important thing, is that consistency.
Yeah, you never, I tell people, when's the last time that you stood in front of the sink to brush your teeth in the morning and say, I've got a really busy day today, I think I'll skip it now and do it twice tomorrow.
Yeah.
It just never happens, because, to your point, it's so ingrained into the routine of your day, of your schedule, that you don't even think about it. And that's the key. When you can get to that point with something, then you're really going to get the results you're looking for. Because people will ask me all the time in seminars, what about this workout? What about that? Do they work? And I say, listen, let's cut to the quick. They all work. They all work. The question isn't whether they work. The question is, are they sustainable?
Yeah.
Because typically, um, these are meant to give you kind of as quick a results as possible, but they have you overdoing in many instances what you can maintain, long term. So I draw a distinction of, you get, there's the temporary and the permanent. A tattoo is permanent. You get a tattoo, it's going to stay there. Changing hair color, is temporary.
Yeah.
And that's the way most people kind of approach, I think, exercise and fitness routines and that sort of thing. They're changing their hair color constantly, rather than finding something that really works, sticking with it, and you do that for the rest of your life. So for me, I'm 67 years old now. I certainly beat the odds on the other, that I read from the article with NFL players. And I, for the last 30 years, have done and only have done a 10-minute workout every day. So I'm living proof that it flat works.
And I think that's one of the challenges, is a lot of things require, and people will say, oh, I can't do that. They point to Hollywood and, how some of these people spend 6 hours a day at the gym. That is not sustainable. I mean, even if it's your career, as a professional athlete, there's only so many hours you can do in the gym. You still need a life, and you've got errands to run, and you got practices. Life happens. So let's talk about the 10 minutes. Now I'm going to guess this is years and years of experience, and for our listeners, I would not have pegged you at 67. I think that alone is a testament. And I watched the movie Concussion, where they talk about NFL players, and it's not a promising longevity path as a career choice. So how did you get it down to 10 minutes? And let's kind of go on that tangent and talk about
Sure.
the science behind it, if you will, because something
Okay.
tells me
Perfect.
you've put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, here's the epiphany that I had. Okay. And this is you'll find this amazing. So here's the question that I'll pose to you and the audience, and so on. If you sat down to watch a football game on TV, college or pro, and you had with a stopwatch, and you started the stopwatch every time the ball was snapped, and you stopped it every time the whistle blew. Okay. Now you've got 4 quarters. You've got 15 minutes a quarter. So, the actual game, and of course, the Super Bowl with commercials is, like 4 hours of you sitting there watching it, right? But again, you start it when the ball snaps. You end it when the whistle blows. So the question is this: over the course of those 4 quarters, or that 60 minutes, at the end of the game, how much time would you have on your stopwatch, do you think?
I'm gonna guess very, very little. It's like, if you're actually timing the game,
it's you're timing movement, ballistic movement on the field. See what I'm saying? So in other words, in football, what people don't realize is, or in a lot of sports, there's a lot of standing around. A lot of standing around the sidelines, there's a lot of standing around in the huddle.
A lot of setting up.
The actual time that you're, putting your body in motion and calling on, all the muscles you've strengthened, and the stress of what you're doing is very short. The average is 11 minutes.
Ooh, I was going to guess 20. So there you go.
11 minutes. This was actually, I think, about 6 Super Bowls ago. It was the front page of the Wall Street Journal, had an article on this, because again, it's just so amazing. So that's kind of where I landed. So that means, again, all that time, you're actually only working out, if you will, for an average of 11 minutes over the course of a 60-minute game. So that's kind of where I landed on the 10-minute to answer your question there. And then from there, I had to prove it out. So it was a matter of, and it was a matter of me just saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and let's see what happens. And it took 2.5 years, okay, at the 10 minutes. But again, over that period of time, I lost a tremendous amount of weight. I went from high blood pressure down to, I have, phenomenal blood pressure, and have from the time that it went down and settled, low body fat percentage, everything fell into line. But now 2.5 years is a long time. Okay. I mean, that's for what we're talking about. A lot of people don't have the patience to go there. But I used to be asked all the time then in a seminar or presentation, do you have any scientific evidence for this? And I would say, no, I don't. There isn't any. But I have lots of anecdotal. So by that time, we had many, many people who had gotten on the program. Hundreds of people were getting on the program and having success. And that's kind of where it's at. What I didn't realize is I was way ahead of the curve for what ultimately landed with what we know now as hit or burst training. Okay.
Okay.
And so that's really what, the science now is all there. So the science is in on the fact that this method absolutely works. You do not need to spend a ton of time, and in fact, you're better off if you will will concentrate the time, if you will, with your workouts to do it with higher intensity or higher effort for a shorter period of time, and then do it more often.
I love that. And, I think I'm a child of the late 70s, early 80s. So, there's that 20-minute this, 20-minute that. Everybody was, and I think, there was too much talk about, and I think this is a North American pandemic. We get into how many hours did you put in? And it's not the hours you put in, it's the quality you put in the hours.
Yeah, well, what happened is they had a hypothesis as well, and that was, when cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and that sort of thing began to rise, began to shoot up, they thought, well, we're pretty sedentary, we need to get people moving. So they, just as I kind of, guessed it, said, okay, I'm going to move forward with my hypothesis of 10 minutes a day of working out. They landed on 2 to 3 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes, and then they developed the whole target heart rate, based on your age. You got to get in the zone, you got to stay there for this amount of period of time. So all the testing they did, it wasn't like we're testing this group of people against this group of people with the two. They were, as I was testing mine, they were testing theirs. And what's happened from that time to now, as far as the science is concerned, is we've discovered something really interesting, and that is that aerobic exercise is really a myth as it has to do with strengthening the heart or cardiovascular fitness. The heart is a pump, it's also a muscle, okay? So what people don't realize is that a marathon runner's heart actually shrinks, okay? Because we're not necessarily designed to run 26 miles without stopping. You can do it, the body will adapt to just about anything. Yeah. So if you do that, but see what you're doing is you're kind of flipping the script, if you will, from training your body for endurance, okay? But the reality is that heart attacks don't occur because you haven't done, you haven't run or put in your miles, so to speak, and all of a sudden, you're running a 5K for your company, for a charity, and you dropped out of a heart attack. Heart attacks happen because you're coming out of the local supermarket at night and somebody puts a gun to your head and they're going to carjack you. Yeah. And it's a fight or flight. All of a sudden your heart goes from 0 to 100, and it's not strong enough as a muscle to handle that event. Okay. So if you look at the athletes and say, who has the strongest hearts? It's the sprinters. Sprinters have the strongest hearts. Because they're doing, again, that burst, and they're building up, just like, if I took a 5-pound weight in my hand and I say, I'm going to build a bicep. Okay. So I'm going to do curls. Well, I probably do 200 of them. Okay. Yeah. And it's not really going to do a whole lot. If I take a 30-pound, I maybe can start out only do 2, but then over time I build up from 2 to 4 to 6 to 10, and now we're really building muscle. We're really building strength. So even today, with all of the knowledge and all of the science and everything else, people are, in my opinion, many people are spending way too much time in the whole aerobic cardio thing with a misunderstanding of what it's really accomplishing. And the other problem with that for those in my age group and on, or once you get past, say, the age 50, is you're beating up your joints. You're doing something that's again, it comes down to kind of functional fitness, getting the most bang for your buck. That's the way I look at it. I mean, you can do that, but what if we could do something differently and accomplish the same thing without having to spend so much time doing it?
I love that. And I think time is a big lesson in today's age. There's such a, we're scarce, we're trying to do too many things. And what I like about the 10 minutes is I'm going to make an assumption here that, if you're doing it right, and again, looking at the shape you're in and the fact that you're 67 when your peers tended to not make it past 53, I'm going to guess that that 10 minutes a day, in fact, gives you time.
Yes, it does. Philip Arvadia, who's a cardiac surgeon, he's written a great book. I'd recommend. It's a great title, "Stay Off My Operating Table." And, he said this. I wrote down this quote. It's a great quote. He said, I always encourage my patients to prioritize building and maintaining strength. The more that you're able to maintain muscle as you age, the longer you will live and the better quality of life you will have. And yeah, muscle and strength has become a big deal because, it's the old good news, bad news. The good news is your body's going to last you longer than you ever dreamed possible because of modern medicine. The bad news is because of modern medicine, your body's going to last you longer than you ever dreamed possible. So we have too many people now that are outliving, their ability to maintain bone strength, muscle strength, mental strength, and acuity, and all these other things because they're not doing the kinds of things that needed to do, and the body demands for that. Sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, is becoming a really big deal. 88% of adults past 55 are at pretty serious risk. 18 million Americans are diagnosed clinically with sarcopenia. Again, the tragedy, as is the case with onset diabetes, it's preventable and it's reversible without medication,
Right.
through exercise and diet.
I love that. Well, let's get into some of the advice that you'll give people. And I recognize, so first of all, I know you've created a website where you're giving your knowledge away for free. So why don't we talk about why that's important to you? And then in the process, if you want to share how people can access that information, I think that would be very useful for our audience.
Yeah, in the past, over the course of, it's been 30 years now that I have done, lectures and presentations, seminars, and so forth, which I still do although on a more limited basis and primarily here just in Greater Atlanta, for companies, organizations, groups, churches, and so forth. And that can be done, virtually or live. And in up till about 2 years ago, or maybe about a year and a half ago, I would, sell the program and, made available through, DVDs and, all that sort of thing. And I decided about 3 years ago, I said, I really just want to give it away. I'm at that age and stage of my life where, I really would like to give it away. So it took about a year and a half to coalesce all of that online. And so took a lot of time filming, the videos because, technique and instructions are very important. You need to know how to do each of the exercises correctly. And in my opinion, education is a really big part of it. My formula was this, it still is: education plus motivation times application equals results. If you get any of those out of order, you're in trouble. And the biggest missing piece, in my opinion, is always the educational piece. Because so what happens is most people, something comes up. Let's say there's a wedding that you're supposed to be in, in a month. And you say, man, I got to lose 15 pounds. I got to lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds. Well, if you came to me with that, I would say, do exactly what I tell you to do. In this case, diet wise, mostly. I can take that 20 pounds off. Okay. However, you need to understand that when it's all said and done, you're not going to be able to continue to do that. It's just not going to happen. So again, that's back to the extreme kind of scenario that a lot of people jump into. If you understand how your body works, either for you or against you, based on what you do physically, then you'll be a lot more motivated to do it in the first place and to continue to do it. So education is a big part of what's there. So going back to what we talked about with habit, because habit's always been a really huge part of what I've taught and tried to have people put into practice. The way it's set up now is when you join, you get a lot of stuff with the program. You get my book, okay, which is a digital book in this case now, post publication. So you get the book for free. You get a lot of video instruction in terms of the educational piece of it. You get a lot of articles and supportive literature, from others validating kind of what you're learning and what you're going through. And then I thought the best way to do it would be to break it down into an everyday kind of thing around 10 minutes. So you actually, you begin by taking the 30-day challenge. And the 30-day challenge basically says, I want you to commit 10 minutes of time, 10 to 15 minutes of your time every day for the next 30 days. And the first day, for example, you would learn one of the exercises. You're not going to begin to do the workouts yet. You're just going to learn one of the exercises, learn how to do it correctly, practice it, so forth. Then the second day, you learn another one of the exercises and so forth. Then you have a review day. And then once you kick past that, which is like day 8, I think, or day 9, then you're into the workouts, okay? The workouts are all concise and they're for you. They're timed out to where you have countdowns and so forth. The other piece that's I think resonates really well with people is, rather than most of the workout videos you see where it's kind of turn it on and then work out with me, here we go, and you do this, will show you the exercise, and then you can stop the video at that point, do the exercise, and then pick it up again to do the next one. And the importance of that is that everybody goes at their own pace, right? I mean, we get different age groups and whatnot that are doing it. So it gives flexibility as far as that's concerned. And you're not always feeling like you're being rushed if you don't want to be rushed as you learn the program. So at the end of the 30 days, you have effectively not only learned the full program and the exercises and how to do them correctly and so forth, but now you have everything that you've just experienced in a dashboard, if you will, that you can go to every day and be able to get to do your workouts. So it's really that simple. The website is getfit and then the number 10.com.
I love it. And I just want to share for the audience that my co-host Pete Kane has joined us. So Pete.
Hello, Dave.
Pete, what's happening, brother?
Sorry for being late.
No,
reading calendars has not been my strong suit. So I messed up on my time
no worries.
of the PT, and that threw everything else off. But hey, I am into habits, and sometimes I miss the habits. But good. Yeah, Jeff. So he's the best educator in the business. So he educates like no other, and people respond to it. So we had many cool days together. And I was with Craig over the weekend. I said,
oh, really?
Yeah, Dave's going to be on the podcast early in the week. He said, tell him I said hello. And we laughed
hello.
about
It's been so long since I've seen Craig.
Yeah, he's pushing.
Yeah, and I was telling Jeff that in the beginning, going way back, gosh, almost 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
You came on, the first one that would schedule me and book me. And Pete was the best, man. Pete would get on that phone, and before I knew it, I had
the man in front of the group. Except
like,
when I scheduled, remember when we would schedule Lions Club? That's when we would get a beat down.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's like, guys, they're 85 years old. They're not exactly my ideal client or ideal audience, excuse
Yeah,
me.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you two are connecting. So, Pete,
Yeah.
are there any questions I should be asking Dave? I know you're joining us late, but
Yeah, just focus on Dave. I'm kind of I'm in the apologizing mode, so you just focus on Dave.
all right. Well, Dave, I'm going to switch gears slightly. One of my favorite things to do when we have somebody who has a wealth of knowledge like yourself is let's just go off script, and I'm going to ask you, what is the number one best piece of advice you've ever received regarding fitness that you'd be willing to share with our audience today? I know that's not a small ask, but
Yeah. Let me think. Probably
Make sure your parachute works now. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Probably small changes make a huge difference over time. I think that people we're in such a I gotta have it now mode, and we have been for a long time.
Yeah.
That everybody wants and expects everything to happen instantly, and they'll pay for it. If you can, man alive, if you can give me a pill, even with side effects, if it can, accomplish X, Y, Z and do it quickly, I'm all over it. That's kind of the mindset. And I have a difficult time convincing people that, look, you didn't get overweight and out of shape, losing your energy. You don't now have onset diabetes, and some of these other things because it happened quickly or overnight. It's happened subliminally, very slowly, probably over a period of many years. And so with that said, it's kind of ridiculous to assume that you can reverse all that in 3 months or 6 months. It takes time. Your body will, if you give your body what it requires and what it needs, everything happens at the cellular level. Okay, so you're replacing like millions of cells on a daily basis. And so literally when you study that out, it's fascinating. You have over 6 to 8 months, you have brand new legs from the cellular level out. Your body is kind of recreating itself constantly. And so the exciting news about that is if you get on track, and that's the key, if you get on track doing the right things, and if you can stick with that and continue to do it, you will see the results. You just have to be patient, and you have to stick with it long enough to realize that.
I love that. And I think I read this somewhere once that, somebody was giving advice to people. And, if you wake up one morning and you step on the scale and you weigh 600 pounds, you didn't wake up overnight and add, all the extra weight. It took time. So
Yeah.
I think that's the key. A lot of people want instant gratification. We're in that, we live in that society where it's instant gratification, this, instant gratification, that. Patience is huge.
Yeah, and the other piece with that, and that folds right back into the whole educational thing, because you're mentioning the scale is a perfect example. With women, it's more so than men. When they get onto when they get on a quote unquote exercise program, they're going to begin to do a workout. It's typically because they want to lose some weight.
Yeah.
But you need to stay away from the scale, okay? And the reason is because muscle burns fat. Okay. So ultimately, if you want to become a fat burning machine, you have to increase your muscle mass. That way you're burning, it's burning, fat as fuel, when you're lying in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay. But you got to get there. So in the initial process with that, as you build muscle weighs more than fat. This is why I'll throw this in. The BMI is ridiculous. Okay, the body mass index. I'm so tired of it. I can't believe that it still owns the day as far as a measurement is concerned. It's nothing more than a glorified height and weight chart. Okay. Yeah. When I take my BMI, I come out either obese or very obese every time. Now you say, why is that? Well, because I have more muscle mass then it appears to be based on my size. If you took almost every athlete taking a BMI would come out obese or very obese, because the one thing they're not measuring, which is the critical thing, is body fat versus muscle mass. Okay. So when you're building that muscle mass, if you get on a scale, you're going to weigh more. So this is what really, you've been doing your workouts now for a week, 2 weeks, and you get on the scale and you gain 2 pounds. And this is where you just go, okay, I've had it. This is ridiculous. I'm like, no, wait a minute, hold on. You're replacing, you're burning the fat, you're building up the muscle mass. Ultimately, that's going to flip and begin to work in your favor, because because that muscle mass is going to be fueling on the fat. So again, education is critical in understanding, again, how your body works and how it doesn't.
I love it. And I think there's so much to think about. Like if you look at the average college athlete, and I'm going to pick on basketball because, they tend to have some muscle, they tend to be leaner, but based on their muscle mass and their height, they're probably obese, which is ridiculous because,
Jordan famously, they did this test and he came out obese. And so it's like, well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, there are some people who, they're athletes. I mean, you think about sumo wrestlers, they're going to come across as obese no matter what. But yeah, it's such an outdated and, it served its purpose. It was based on actuarial tables to determine risk for life insurance. Okay.
Right.
But right. as a judgment, I mean, and that's the thing. I had a friend who was, he's my height, so I'm not going to say he was short, but he was about 5'7", 5'8", and he was a solid, lean, 0% body fat, literally, 300 pounds. And, he worked out. Literally his life was his work and his gym. Yeah. And yet when you looked at the tables, he was off the chart because he had so much mass compared to his height.
Well, it goes the other way too. I mean, in my seminars, I'll say, there's a big difference between fitness and thinness. Okay. So we have many people that just because they're thin, you could look at it and say, oh, well, they're great. Just because they're thin doesn't mean they're healthy. Doesn't mean they're in great shape. They have what's called skinny fat now, which refers to, it kind of started with like runway models who are, very thin, and so forth, but they have a high percentage of body fat. Okay. Because they don't have any strength. They don't have a lot of muscle mass. And so there's different body types. We can get really thrown off. I like to compare it like to dogs. You take a Rottweiler, okay, who's in great shape, and then you look at a Greyhound. They're both of them are very fit. Okay, but 2 completely different body types. Yeah. And that's the same thing here. You can have someone who looks like they might be 10, 15 pounds overweight, but they're not. Okay, it's their body type, and they're based on the measurements that are important, they're in good shape.
I love that. And Pete, you can jump on in if you have any questions. Yes. But I think Dave, fascinating, and I think Pete can attest that Dave does not look to be 67. Not that 67 looks like something, but I know way too many people who've actively ridden couches for years, and they don't look great once they're at 50, let alone by the time they get 67. What's your favorite morning routine, Dave? How do you get up and embrace the day with some energy?
I've actually shifted. I used to do my workouts always in the morning. I felt like it was, I need to get it out of the way because things happen, and then you come up, find yourself making an excuse of this, that, or the other through the day. But once it becomes really ingrained in your life, there's so much guilt when you miss it. It's like, okay, no, I can never do that again. And so, it's so much a part of the fabric of my life that my actual workouts now are in the afternoon, in the late afternoon. And you can also split this up. You could do 5 minutes in the morning. You could do 5 minutes in the afternoon. There's actually pieces of it. Isometrics plays a big part because isometrics is a great way and a very quick way to build strength safely. And you can do isometrics. I have people tell me once they learn all the isometric exercises that they do them in the car. They do them while they're stuck in traffic, in some cases. So you can break it up that way. For me, my morning routine is to walk a mile and a half with my bride every morning in the national park. That's something that we established probably 25 years ago. At first, because we had dogs and we'd take the dogs for a walk. Our subdivision borders the national park, so it's easy to hop over there. And so that is just a part of our routine. It's also a good, I know not everybody can do this, but if you can, or do some facsimile of it, I think for the husband-wife relationship, it becomes really, really neat in this sense that, women, you've heard this, and it's true, women speak, let's say they speak 70,000 words a day, and we speak 20,000 men. Okay. And,
Yeah.
with kids, you have a mom with 2 or 3 little kids running around the house, they've gone past their 70,000 at 1 o'clock, right? Or noon. But unfortunately, the words were all to little kids, right? I mean, they're not connecting them the way they would really like to.
Yeah.
And so they, or they haven't, if they're home alone or whatever, they've still got margin. They're at, let's say, 45, 50,000. Okay. When the husband comes back on the scene, home from work or whatever. And the husband, he's way past his 20,000. Okay. So then you run into that crisis where, the wife says, well, how was work today? And the husband's like, oh, please don't ask me that question. Please don't make me tell you. I don't want to talk right now. I just give me some, let me sit down and eat a meal, sit down in front of TV, whatever. So, and definitely don't want that conversation happening right before you're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So the morning, it's great because I can have a busy day. She can have a busy day, come home and I'll say, you know what, we don't even have to go there, because in the morning when we spend that 30 minutes and take that mile and a half walk, we're going to talk about everything. It's fresh new day. We're out and we can talk and dialogue and back and forth and it really, really, it has a lot of benefits, I guess, is what I'm saying, beyond just the exercise component of it.
I love that. Well, I know I could talk to you for hours, but we want to be mindful of your time. Is there anything I should have asked you about either, fitness, wellness, or about what your mission is in life that I haven't? And we'd be remiss if we didn't ask before we wound up.
I jammed through a lot of stuff. What do you think? The only other thing I can think of is the 100 years ago or 70 years ago, maybe 60 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, with far as fitness, that's what, we have settled into this ridiculous sedentary lifestyle. Okay. I mean, my father grew up on a 600-acre ranch, couldn't actually play sports because he had to be home to work the ranch. He was one of the hardest, working people that I knew, as far as, labor was concerned. And my parents didn't go to the gym. They didn't have gyms. They didn't have workout facilities. They didn't have workout routines.
Yeah.
Even when TV came on the scene, there certainly weren't channels and there weren't commercials about fitness, because they were doing on a daily basis what the body demanded and what was necessary. But that has been totally, reversed. And so what we find is that if you don't supplant that, if you don't replace what the body is demanding and what's necessary, then what's going to happen, and I see this a lot, we see this a lot with those our age, you're going to end up in one or two camps. You're either going to be able to continue to do the kinds of things that you like to do, not the same. I can't do what I could do in my 40s, not even my 50s, but I'm still very active. And when Melinda and I travel somewhere, we can look at the portfolio of activities and what's going on and say, let's do some whitewater rafting. Let's take the zip line. Let's do this, let's do that. And in that sense, we can stay really, really active. But we see so many at that point that can't. All of that has stopped. And that's tragic to me. It doesn't have to be that way. And so a big part of what should be the motivation to do this, and it certainly is with me, so that I can continue to to do the things that I would like to do.
I love that. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll let Pete have some final thoughts, but I really, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no problem. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm going to have to correct my calendar to make sure that I can read it properly. Nothing profound, but we'll catch up later, Dave. I mean, I wanted to be, all of a sudden, it was like servers in the restaurant industry have been devastated or have been hit hard. So 2 servers short, a cook, a manager. So service was slow, to say the least. And so no self-checkout in this restaurant. So I was between a rock and a hard place, but I know that now. But no, appreciate you being on.
Great to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.